I think we're live. We're live with
Okay.
Nestor Carbonell. Nestor, oh my God. All you have to do is sit there and smile for
Oh,
the next
stop it.
hour, and
Come on
everyone,
now. Stop.
everyone is going to be okay. So we have to
Oh
get
my
it
God.
out of the way because everybody asks you this question, but it's insane. Come on.
What's that?
You've had tattoos
Oh,
done on your
no,
eyes.
no, no.
Tell the truth here.
Okay. For this is it. This is the truth, God's honest truth. No, I'm just look, I can see I'm a hairy dude. And no, I've had them since I was a little
Shh.
kid. And in fact, I even cut them. I cut them because all my mom's friends would say, "Oh my God, look at his eyelashes." So I cut them when I was really young, and they
You had to be teased mercilessly.
yeah, but as a kid, yeah, after a while, it was just like, well, who cares? It's just, yeah, I was born, it's nothing, I had nothing to do with it. There's nothing I could do
It's
about it.
wild, Nestor. It's wild. So,
But,
okay.
but Vicky, I don't blame anybody when they see on camera, they think I'm wearing some kind of, I don't blame it because there are times when I look, I go, yeah, it really does look like I'm wearing something there. The funniest thing was I went to get a haircut. This is a while back. And I remember I went to sit down in the chair and the guy goes, "Hey man, I like your paint." And I'm going, "What?" "Your paint." I go, "What's my paint?" He goes, "On your eyes." I go, "Oh, I didn't know they call it paint now."
I didn't know that either, but I really like that.
But I was like, "No,
And
no, man."
speaking of hair, getting a haircut, were you with Nicole recently? Have you seen Nicole
I
Venables?
haven't seen her. I know we shared Nicole as a friend. She works on the morning show. I haven't seen her in a while. In fact, I haven't seen her since we wrapped the morning show. So it's been a minute. Would have been like November last year, but I'm hoping to see her soon. She's the
And
best.
she told me that you were the one that gave her Emmy. She was so
Oh,
excited. Oh my God.
well, she's amazing, so well deserved. She all the entire crew is incredible. That was such a surprise because yeah, I got to go to the Creative Emmys, Arts Emmys, and then yeah, they had me give the award for contemporary hair, and
Now,
they
wait a minute. Was that the same year that you won? Was it the same? It
was
was when you won your award
it was
for Shogun.
for Shōgun. It was last year, yeah. So the Creative Arts Emmys last year, yeah. So that was really special because I got to give them an award, and then also for hair and Shōgun for period hair and Shōgun. I got to give those guys an award. So that was a really special night for me just to
You
get.
you had quite the night. But let's talk about that for a minute, just as a fan.
Oh,
What is it like to have that moment when they call your name and they call your name? Had you been nominated before?
no, I'd never been nominated for an Emmy.
I
No,
didn't think so. Okay, so this is your first nomination.
right.
Do you have the speech written?
I
Come
had
on.
something. I had something in my head because here's the strange thing, Vicky, and it's a beautiful thing. I was directing Law and Order. I was in New York directing Law and Order, and I'd asked to see if they could let me fly and take the red eye because it was on a Sunday they were giving out the award. And I said, if I take the red eye back, could our amazing producing director Alex Hall cover for me in the first scene in case I don't make it straight from the airport on the red eye? Anyway, long story short. So I was in the midst of halfway through directing Law and Order while I was also doing the morning show because we were figuring out that schedule. So I had a lot of things going on, which is a wonderful thing, as you know, in this business. To be busy is a beautiful thing. So I was like, all of this wonderful stuff going on, and yes, I had thought of, well, what if in the event I do end up, what if I win? I've got to have something, and so I had some thoughts, about certainly the sacrifices that everyone around me had made, and especially my wife, for me to get to
Sure.
do. And the wonderful thing about that is about getting. Obviously, it's an incredible honor, and to get that from your peers. But really, it's also an opportunity to thank all the people who truly make it happen. Because you and I both know it takes an enormous number of people around us to help us get to do what we love to do, and so, and the sacrifice my wife made is, I mean, hands down is the biggest one in my life, that allowed me to do what I get to do. She stepped away from her dream as an actress and we talked about this before,
We got to talk about it right now. You have to hold up the book because I have an
oh,
audience of people that read
oh,
books,
okay, great. Well, this is her book. I don't know if you can read the title. It's with a glare.
kind of with, yeah, okay.
All is not lost. And so Shannon Kenny Carbonell, and it's really her book is about her stepping she wrote it during the last year of while we shot the last season of Lost, and really as a memoir, as a memoir of that year, but really to explore, what it means to set aside your lifelong dream in favor of full-time parenthood, and what it did to her was amazing, because she got to be a full-time parent, and that was tremendous. But she was an actress, a professional actress for 20 years, but she didn't realize that it leaves a vacancy, a creative vacancy, a hole in you when you do that. That
Mhm.
if you don't nurture that in some level, it's going to sort of fester and eat away at you, because you're a creative being. I mean, my God, you've done it all. So if you're not, yeah, I mean, author, screenwriter,
No, no, no.
everything. But
So did when I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm really curious. So was the creative hole now being filled by being a writer? Was that doing it for her?
in the sense it did, yes. She sort of crash landed on Hawaii. We moved there the last season with the kids. We put them in school there, and so she kind of crash landed. I don't know if you can see in the book here. There's an image of a plane. It's sort of mimicking like even though this is not about Lost. There's elements of Lost in here, but you see like an image of a woman as a shadow underneath the plane. I don't know
All
if you
right, I
can see
told
that.
you, your wife and I have to meet. This is
Well,
not a real copy of my book. It's a
let me see
galley
this.
copy. But
Okay.
if you can see, there's a woman. It's called Don't Jump, and there's a woman jumping off the
Oh my
side of
God. Yes, I
the
do.
street there. So
Okay. No,
Shannon and I have stuff to talk
That
about.
that's amazing. You certainly do not, and yeah, and I can't wait to read your book. Yeah, it's extraordinary, and to be so brave, in the same way you did it and she did it, to say something that is kind of taboo. You're not meant to complain. My God, you should be so lucky you have these wonderful kids, and of course she's incredibly grateful and speaks about that in the book. And yet at the same time, you can't help but say, hey, there's a side of me here that doesn't get to be fed. I've sort of, and it was a lifelong dream of hers. So that was an opportunity, certainly at the Emmys, to get to thank her, thank my parents for their sacrifices, my brother,
Mm.
my sister, everyone around me, our kids, and the extraordinary people around all of us that help us grow as an artist and as people.
And so is it something, can Shannon not go back to that now? Is it
You know,
something she's
I
considered?
I would love for her to do that, because she's so talented. I mean, this is amazing. She came here from Australia with nothing. I mean, she had made it a little bit of money working on a soap in Australia. She had about enough money to subsidize a year at Cal Arts. She'd gotten into Juilliard, but she couldn't go to Juilliard because she couldn't afford New York.
That is so wrong.
Yeah,
That
I
is
know.
so wrong.
It was a shame. Yeah, she was so excited she got in, but then she couldn't afford that. So she could
Wow.
afford the first year of Cal Arts along with a scholarship. So she won, and then so every year she had to win the scholarship in,
Oh,
in order to stay at Cal Arts and finish and graduate.
right, right.
So she was, it was all about that. So imagine, that journey, then coming, here to LA, knowing nobody, and then just grinding it out, as everyone does,
Hmm.
but with that uphill battle, doing, I don't know how many waitressing jobs, like, we all did when we started out. And but she really had there was no safety net, there was no nothing. And so for her to work 20 years, and then when she's pregnant, as she's on a job, she's on a TV show, pregnant with her second son,
Uh-huh.
suddenly say, you know what, I can't do it. I can't continue doing this and leave both at home and go 14 hours on a set and not see them. She goes, God bless others who can. She goes, I'm just not able to. So she set her dreams aside to do that. And to answer your question, can she do it now? I hope so. I mean, our kids are now 23 and 20, and I would love for her to do that. I would. She's so talented. She's so, and she's, I mean, obviously incredibly well trained, but she's so talented that I would love for her to dive back in, and it's been a number of years since she's done it. So
How how long did it take her to write her book?
she wrote it. It was a few years because she wrote
I mean,
it.
it took me years, so
Yeah,
I'm not judging. I'm
yeah, no, for sure. It took her a few years. It became sort of journaling, because it's really journal. It was a journal that developed into a book, a memoir of sorts. And then she rewrote it a couple of times, two or three times. It would have been 2 or 3 years, I think at least 2 or 3 years, and then, yeah, and then editing and then going through the whole
And
process.
then when did it come out?
It came out, oh my God, when did it come out? We pushed it and it came to the pandemic. It was like right around 2019, 2020, like that first, yeah, right on the beginning of 2020. So right around, yeah, the pandemic.
Okay, so let's talk about the pandemic. The people who watch this show, I have this other show that I started in the pandemic
Oh,
because I
yeah,
was home alone. I had nothing to do. My kids were out. And so I just went live 7 days a week because
I
I had
love
nothing to do. And so I stayed busy.
it. So
What did, but it was really long. I mean, it was really a crazy time. Where were you doing a show when it got shut down? What were you doing?
yeah, we were shooting the morning show. We were shooting season 2 of the morning show. We'd started, I think we'd shot a couple episodes or an episode and a half. We haven't quite finished second episode. And then they shut us down, like everyone got shut
Right,
down. And then, it was in the beginning, everyone was like, well, it's maybe a couple of weeks, but we kind of all knew it was not going to be a couple of weeks.
right.
We didn't know it was going to be 9, 10 months, I mean, and in the end, so then the writers, Carrie Aaron, who at the time was writing the show, or the creator of
Mhm.
the show, she had to reconceive the season because now, it's a show about, as you know, about current events. She had to sort of factor in COVID into the season. So
Which was so phenomenal.
yeah, all the credit to her and all the writers.
What was the Jennifer Aniston character a little bit like, was it like a Chris Cuomo kind of thing? Because
Interesting.
he was doing,
That's right. That's right.
right? He was doing the
Right.
news from his basement
He
with
was. That's right.
COVID.
You're absolutely right. It could have been. I'm not quite sure, but
Hmm.
it could have been a sort of Chris Cuomo thing. I have to ask her what inspired that storyline. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean that's what I was doing at the time. But I was also trying.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh no, yeah, I was also trying not to, like everyone else, trying not to go insane because we were all locked down for so long here, especially here in LA. You
So
know,
what were you do? What were you and Shannon and the boys doing? Well, the boys
so
were in school, so
what the boys went to school, which was brutal because it was all Zoom. And so yeah, I know that it had a really adverse effect on everyone. Our boys really felt it.
mhm.
One of our sons was graduating high school. So along with everyone who graduated that year, he missed graduation, prom, all that stuff, spring break, all of those sort of seminal moments. But in a weird way, it's interesting. You could look at it. Okay. You'll never forget that period either. It was sort of a unique thing. But he learned how to drive during that time because it's kids these days, they take Ubers.
Right.
I couldn't wait to turn 16 and he waited till he
Mhm.
was 18. So he took that opportunity. You could be on the road. There was no one on the road. So he learned how to
Right.
drive. So we took him out driving. That was the most incredible thing about LA is that you can get from, East LA to Santa Monica in about, 15 minutes.
That's crazy.
Because there's no one on the road. But so what do we do? We try to do as many activities as we could with the boys. We played games, watched movies, went for walks.
Were
Uh,
you productive? Were you creatively productive?
I was writing, so I did write a script with a friend of mine, my writing partner. So we did actually end up using that time to write a script that it's a movie that I'm doing with our mutual friend Mark Maxey.
Which
That's
we will talk about that too.
Yeah, so that sort of spawned that. But so that I'm really happy that came out of that as well. But Vicki, for me and for everybody, I think it was about trying to stay sane. I mean, it was
Hmm.
such an unusual thing, and I don't know if you feel this now, but I still feel some of the effects of that socially.
Nestor, I can't believe that you said that because I have been talking about this ad nauseum for the last month because it really hit me how my whole life has completely changed. Who I am has changed because of the pandemic. I am socially uncomfortable. I used to have events in my home.
Right.
I went to screenings all the time and
Yeah,
parties and clubs, and I feel so uncomfortable in those situations now.
I'm with you. I completely do. I mean, I think I was never fully, but
Me
now,
either.
well, I
I
mean,
pretend, but I could walk the walk,
yeah, of
and I'm
course.
sure you could too.
Yeah, we all do,
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I completely understand. I know exactly what you're talking about. It feels like if I meet now 4 or 5 people at once, it feels like an affront to the senses. I feel like, whoa, this is a lot I'm taking in. And that year was completely disorienting. And that's for us. Imagine young kids who are developing socially.
I can't even, like even the night we were going to meet you and Mark for dinner, Snuffy and I have to make an effort to go out to dinner. Like, oh, are we going to feel weird? Is this going to be weird? It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think we're alone, sadly,
Hmm.
but I think the more people are open to talking about it, hopefully they'll feel better about it because yeah, it's definitely a condition. It was, we were all yeah, held sort of, in tight quarters. And then you're right, the phobias kick in. Well, what's it like re-entering society after being, how do I, how am
Like,
I?
when did you guys go back to work on the morning show? Sorry to interrupt you. Wait,
Oh,
like
yeah,
you went pretty early, right?
I think we were one of the first shows to go back, which is amazing, and that's a credit to everyone at Apple and Sony and Media Res for making that happen. I think went back in October.
And so was that wonderful, scary, all of the above? Was it?
I couldn't wait to get back personally.
Oh,
I think at that point we all had a sense of, obviously the people that it was definitely hitting the hardest, anyone who was immunocompromised. So if you were lucky enough not to be, then, I think people felt, okay, the protocols are in place, and my God, they did everything. They
but
had
didn't you guys get shut down because somebody got caught?
Yeah, I mean, people would get COVID, but then people they were very careful after someone got COVID. Okay, the people around that person probably shouldn't get tested and maybe not also be sent home. Happened a couple of times. I think that happened on just about on most shows. But here, I got to tell you something. My son went off to college in the fall of 2020, vaccinated, all those things, and all the kids had to be vaccinated. They all got COVID.
Of course they did.
They
Of
all got it.
course.
It was just, I mean, it was obviously, it was a shot. It wasn't an immunization. So in that respect, but no,
So wait, he went off to college in 2020. Was he,
yeah,
were they doing it in the dorm on Zoom? Were they?
they were living in dorms. This is
Mhm.
at Michigan, University of Michigan. They were living in dorms and they were, yeah, because he was in the freshman dorm, but they definitely had a lot of COVID protocols. But, even then, I mean,
Yeah.
we know how easily it spreads, so,
And where
um,
was your other son?
our other son was here, so he's still in high school here. So he stayed here, and yeah, and again, same protocols, that kind of thing. But he zoomed, I think, for a while, even through the fall of 2020. So they didn't go back to for in person for a while. So yeah, no,
At least a year, it
yeah,
feels like.
it was that. It was tough. That was tough.
And do you think it's affected them socially?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but it has to, I mean, if it's affecting, adults, it has to affect kids. I mean, it has to. I don't know what the studies say in terms of how kids are relating, socially now after post-COVID, but
Hmm.
I can only imagine that it has, I mean, it's just such an unusual thing to be sort of cloistered.
My daughter met her husband, her now husband, just now, on Tinder during the pandemic.
No way. Well, that's
Yeah.
something good.
And so they used to FaceTime
Oh, that's
for,
great.
hours at a time and
Oh,
stuff.
listen,
Yeah.
there are some amazing things that came out of that. There's no question, and I mean, I know virtual hybrid sort of a workspace came out of it. I think a lot of people like that. I still like the idea of, the notion of going to work, at a workplace, but a lot of people like the hybrid thing and the advantages of being at home. And I don't know. What do you
It's really a toss-up, Nestor. I sit here and we do this, and I didn't have to drive through traffic to get to you. I didn't have to bring my crew and set up my camera.
think?
The audience gets to watch both of our eyeballs. We're not looking at each other. We're looking
Sure.
this way, right? So there are these advantages, but the difference between
That's true.
the human
Yeah.
contact,
You can't replicate that.
no.
You're so right about that. Yeah, no, it's true. And even a lot of meetings now, I'm directing nowadays, so a lot of it is on Zoom, and it's not the same. Even auditions that I get as a director.
Okay, we have to talk about that too, because I just an agent found me recently and I did a couple of self-tapes. Okay,
Tell me about
do you do self-tapes?
it. I haven't done any self tapes, no,
Oh,
but I have watched because that's what I get when I direct is self tapes. So tell me about your experience. How
no,
did you do it with
it's
Snuffy or did you?
Snuffy is my read.
I
Yes,
was gonna say, yeah.
Snuffy has played my mother, my wife,
I gotta see those tapes. Send me the
he's
tape.
played my daughter. It's been
That's
hysterical.
that's really funny.
But okay, so you haven't had to do so. Well, you're at a stage of your career where you don't have to audition anymore. I'm assuming that you get a role.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I've been lucky. Yeah. but I understand the self-tape thing is it. I mean, that is extremely tricky.
Okay, so as a director, you have to tell us the truth, Nestor,
Sure.
because
Yeah, yeah.
what I hear is that when they look at the self-tapes, as soon as they find what they're looking for, they don't look at the rest of them. It's done, right?
I don't do that. I
You
don't.
don't do
I
that.
can only speak for myself because I don't.
Right.
I should talk to other directors about that. I can only speak for what my process is.
Hmm.
I'm looking. For instance, if I'm looking at a number of there's so many number of roles and a number of actors who put themselves up for the roles. Some are yeah, they're all self tapes. Some actually do go to the casting office and do it there. But either way, it's all recorded, so I get the tapes. I go through every single one, sometimes
Wow.
2 or 3 times because
Wow.
I want to know that I didn't miss anything. And I'm not looking for type. So if it's written as it's this type, I'm looking for performance.
What?
I'm only looking for, is that person listening? Are they connected? Are they working off the reader? Are they, do I feel like they're, pursuing an objective? That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for, okay, oh yeah, so he or she fits what the writer. No, because that's that's so secondary. To me, it's all about, are they truthful? Are they honest? Are they, and are they listening? Those are the big things. But I do watch every single take.
I think you are a rare bird, Nestor.
I don't know. I want to believe that I'm not. I want to believe
Mm.
because, I do know how hard auditioning is. Oh my God, I did so many years of it, and it's so hard and it's so vulnerable that you owe it to everyone involved to at the very
Okay,
watch it.
so let's talk about some of your auditions. So, okay, so Harvard, Nestor, really? You went to Harvard? I mean, oh my gosh.
Don't be too impressed with that.
I
No,
am totally
no,
impressed with
please don't.
that.
No, no, no. Listen, it was an amazing experience.
What prepared? Okay, I know your dad went to Harvard and your sister did as well. Is that true?
My father he got his master's in law after he went to college in Cuba, and then when he was exiled, he had a law degree in Cuba, but
Did they
it's
come over during the whole
Castro, yeah,
Castro?
1960, yeah. So,
Right.
so they were exiles in 1960. They didn't know each other at the time. My father's older than my mom, but that he ended up going to law school to get his master's there in international law because he couldn't practice with a degree in the U.S. It's a civil law versus common law. It's different. So he got his international degree there, and then he practiced. And my sister went to the Kennedy School of Government and got a master's there after going to Georgetown. But yeah, I went to the college. But not, Vicki, not knowing what I wanted to do. I thought, I get a BA, maybe go into law or something. I honestly had no clue.
Well, okay, you had no clue, but come on, as a little kid with a dream, what was the dream? There had to be a dream.
Well, I never acted as a kid. I mean,
You didn't do school plays?
no, I mean, I did the odd one where everyone had to do it, and I would,
Right.
here and there in middle school or something. Nothing in high school. No,
Were
nothing.
you attracted by the arts? Did you go to the theater? Did you?
No, not particularly. No, I painted and I
Mhm.
drew. So I took that all the way through AP art. So I was always artistic in that regard. But I never thought of performing, no, or acting in anything like that. It just wasn't something that was on my radar. I went to boarding school where it was an all boys boarding school where we had to do a sport every season. So I was really into the sports, and
What
into,
was your sport?
I mean, we had to do, back then you had to do one every season.
Everything. Mhm.
Yes, it was soccer, then wrestling, and then crew. Crew in the end, it was tennis in the beginning, and then I ended up doing crew. So amazing, and great experience doing all that. And then the academics were really rigorous, so it was all about that. I never it was, doing theater, acting was never on my radar, and it wasn't something I was particularly interested in at the time. So it wasn't until I took there was one elective at Harvard
Okay,
that
wait. So you went into Harvard and you got an English degree?
I thought, well, what am I going to study here? It's a liberal arts school. It's not like you can go into finance. There's an economics, be an economics major and not a finance major. So I just thought, well, let me just get a BA in something, humanity and English. I like English. And so I'll do that. And then I'll decide maybe later on, maybe like your daughter, apply to law school,
Well,
or
you already a good writer? Were you a good reader? I mean, you
Yeah,
must
I
have
mean,
been.
I thought I was. Yeah, I thought if anything, my
Mhm.
strengths, were in that versus say the maths. I mean, so I leaned into that area. It was either going to be that or history or something in that regard. So I just picked that one. I said, okay, I'll do that. And so, but then the one elective that I thought, oh, this might be fun. I'll try this class. It was a great teacher. This gentleman is no longer with us, David Wheeler, who was a renowned director and coach, and in Boston particularly, and he introduced me to the Sanford Meisner technique, and to that book specifically,
Mhm.
Sanford Meisner on acting, and I read that book, and then that's when I knew I've got to study this, and so then I did plays at Harvard in the Bay student run plays.
Wow.
I did as much as I could, and then eventually got an agent through uh, through a friend, who had an agent at the time. And then eventually what I wanted to do was really study it. So I came out to LA after I graduated, and I went to Playhouse West and I studied it there. And then later on at Bill Alderston Studios, I studied Meisner there. So that was really, it was all about studying that technique, for me.
And now at that point, was your father having a nervous breakdown?
I mean, yeah, I could say this, and I don't know how you feel with your kids, but I could say this now, and having kids, I could see what he was feeling, because
Sure.
you want your kids to be safe and to be, and it was nuts. I mean, no one in our family had ever done anything remotely close to what I was wanting to do. So I can't even imagine what that bomb must have felt like on it. But to his credit and to my mom's credit, they handled it so well, so
Oh,
well.
that's
They
great.
were, they were tremendous. They were great. They were so supportive. And I don't know how it was for you in the beginning, but I, 3 really rough years.
Okay, that was my next question. How long did it take you from getting out of Harvard to
Right.
starting to earn a living as an actor?
Sure. Well, and I know I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones.
Okay, here we
I,
go.
so I recognize how lucky I am. I had an agent at the time. So
Immediately.
I had one yet
Okay.
while I was in college. In fact,
Ah,
there were times I was auditioning even as I was in college. I even flew out to LA to screen test for a film, so
wow.
I was already in the game in that respect. I did a play off Broadway, a 2 character play off Broadway during one of the summers. So I was already working. I did a few episodes on As the World Turns, flying back and forth from New York to Cambridge to Boston, doing that. So I was already kind of doing that stuff. So it's not fair to say that I started cold turkey. I didn't. And
Right.
most importantly, I had representation, and I had an agent that could get phone calls returned, which is another big deal,
Amazing.
because we all know how hard that whole thing is.
Hmm.
So I had a great agent, and I was getting these opportunities, but it did take me, even with all those advantages, and I had plenty of them, it took me 3 years to be able to quit either working. I worked at a juice bar for 9 months, at Beverly Connection. I taught Koreans English for about 11 months in Koreatown. I did that at night. I was not a good waiter. I was great at like one table, but like you gave me like six, and I was like, so I wasn't a great multitasker. So I was not great there. So I lasted about 3 months at that restaurant. I was Batman at a party. One party, I was really bad. I was not prepared. The kids just deservedly just tore me up. And then no, I deserved it. I felt awful. But and then what saved me, this is interesting. I don't know if this is helpful to anybody, in the community, but I was like, why don't I lean on something that I know I can sort of narrow the market for myself? And I spoke Spanish. So I said, well, why don't I try and see if maybe I can get Spanish commercials for Telemundo or Univision, just
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So I'm not competing against, 10,000 guys, and it's maybe just like 50, And so, and obviously it didn't pay as well as an American national
Right.
commercial, but I was like, hey, it's much more than I'm making now. And so that's where I did start making some headway, and I started booking commercials in Spanish. And
Such as, can you give us a little sample of one of?
I did my first one was for Zest. Remember Zest the soap? Is it
Sure, of
still around?
course.
Yeah. Is it still a company? I can't remember.
I don't know. It was green. I remember Zest was
Green. Yeah.
green. Yeah.
So, si usted se baña con jabón, mire lo que se pierde. Remember that was the copy, and it was so bad. I did it just like that. that they ended up dubbing it because it was so bad. But I remember doing that. I did one for Dove soap, so that another competing soap for Dove, and then for Norelco, I did for Norelco for Volkswagen, the Volkswagen Jet. I did that. Like they had me do that in 5 different languages. So I had to
Oh
have,
my God.
so that was really fun. So anyway, the point,
So,
AT&T, yeah,
so how did you cross over into English
sure.
radio TV?
Oh, so that's interesting. So that was sort of a separate thing with my commercial agent that I was being able to do that with my theatrical agent.
Hmm.
They were submitting me for everything. And then I would
Were
just,
you get Nestor, were you getting sent up for Latin roles?
yeah, I
Were
was.
you only getting sent up for Latin roles, or would
You
you
know,
also?
I think predominantly
Hmm.
so. And I think, I mean, I kind of get it. You know, it's sort of easier to sort of put people in sort of
Of course.
boxes, and certainly I get it. I get how it is. And so predominantly I was being seen as that. The only thing is that this is when I was starting out. It was off the heels of the movie Colors. Remember Colors? Sean,
Sure.
yeah, and Robert Duvall. And it was a lot of sort of gang, sort of oriented Chicano gang things. And I was like, I'd love to stretch, and it's great. And I did one or two here and there, but I was like, it's really not that much in my wheelhouse. I really got to stretch for that. And so there at the time when I started out, there weren't as many other kind of roles, Latino
Mm.
roles. There were some, but not as many. So I would go out for as much as I could, and then slowly those doors started to open up. Jimmy Smits, with his success on L.A. Law, opened many doors. A. Martinez did as well. Andy Garcia, obviously,
Right.
later Antonio Banderas. So, but for those roles, they started to expand, and those gentlemen all helped. Yeah, expand those roles for Latinos for sure. And
So
so
what were your early roles, Nestor? Like before Suddenly Susan, like what kind of stuff
So,
were you getting?
I was like, I remember I was Shelley Long's boyfriend on a show called Good Advice. I did a guest spot on that, and I was her handyman. And I remember I had to kiss Shelley Long in the episode. I go, this is epic. It was, and that was, so, and it was a time where it was a lot of sitcoms. So sitcoms were big at the time. And so I was just, and that was, I don't know if I know you've done SNL 3 times, right? Did I read that?
That's yeah, but silly. Like
No, that's not
yeah.
silly.
No,
That's
what
even
I did was silly, but yeah.
No. Well, it's
Yeah.
frightening. First of all, you're live. You're doing something live like that, which is,
Mm,
yes. Come on.
go ahead, go ahead.
No. Anyway, the
No, yeah.
point is, you understand. It's its own thing, and it's its own. It's not like what you learn in Meisner class, and there's a musicality to sitcoms, and it's a hybrid. It's not quite theater. It's not quite film. You have to be alive to the fact that there's an audience, and yet you can't play to them. You really have to. You have to work off your partner as if this is a film and yet be alive. So it is its own weird hybrid thing.
And you just kind of found your feet.
I had to find it. I had to figure it out. I was like, well, I'm starving here. I mean, not literally, but I was like, I need to work and I need to figure out how to make this work because I've not been trained for any of this. And so I just found a way to, there's a math to it, setting it up, not tipping the joke. I got to figure out the math and then ground it and find it, and so I started doing like guest spots here and there, and I would do 2 or 3 a year. And then I remember, and then sort of my first break came on a show that was the first show that the WB ever did, the first lineup, and it was before the CW, and it was a show where I met my wife. It's called Muscle, and it was Whit Thomas. They were doing their version of Soap. Remember the show Soap?
Of
Yeah.
course.
But in a gym. They wanted to do it in a gym, so they hired like 11 of us, or 11, and it was 13 on air, which I was like, oh my God, we're already on air, 13 episodes. It's not just getting a pilot. Now and I didn't know I was going to meet my wife there. The show lasted 13 episodes, and that was it. But and then, yeah, so that was that. And that sort of opened up the world of TV in a bigger way. Once I got that, then,
Did that lead to Suddenly Susan? Yeah.
eventually, then I read for Suddenly Susan the following pilot season. And that, but I'd had that under my belt. So that experience and a little bit of exposure, somewhat of exposure. Yeah.
So now life must have changed right there because you were regular and it lasted for years for you.
Everything changed. There's no question. Suddenly Susan changed everything for me in the best way possible. It meant that I could do it exclusively. I could act exclusively and not wonder, oh my God, I'm going to have to go back, which is not the end of the world, but I thought maybe this
Sure.
is it. Maybe I can dedicate myself exclusively to this and hold out, for other opportunities. And thankfully, it obviously provided so much more in the sense of wealth of experience, getting to work with great talent, and then just getting to act. I played a character with an accent, so after I finished that, I realized I was like, everyone thinks I have an accent, and wear eyeliner. I go, how do I dispel those two things, those two myths? I was like, forget about the eyeliner. They're always going to think that. I go, so I have to murder that character and find a character that doesn't have an accent, and speaks like I do or something close to me. And so, but then as I'm doing that, I get this offer from Barry Sonnenfeld to do the animated version of The Tick. And I go, what's the character? And I go, I'd love to work with you. It's called Bat Manuel. And I go, does he have an accent? He goes, you bet he does. And I read it. I go, of course I'm doing this. This is so incredibly well written. So I ended up doing, I think we only did 10 episodes. But it was one of the
Is
most
that Patrick Warburton?
yes,
Patrick
Patrick
Warburton,
Warburton. Oh,
hysterical. Yeah.
yeah, that was one of my favorite experiences
Really?
professionally. Oh my God, it was extraordinary. But then after that, I said, no, I really cannot do any more accents. So after that, I started working without an accent. But
So
no,
was it hard to segue from what was the first big gig you got
you
without
know,
sans an accent?
yeah, I think, well, there's one I did a show we only did. It was a mid-season replacement. It was called Century City with a great cast: Viola Davis, Hector
Mhm.
Elizondo, Johan Grufford, Kristen Lehman. It was a really great cast. That one I played a lawyer. It was Lawyers in the Future, Lawyers in 2030, which is fascinating because we were shooting this in 2000 or something like that, 2001. And they were talking to people in the future, or futurists, people who study the future, saying, well, what's it going to look like? And they were talking about, cars on the freeway, sort of driving on their own or on magnets. And here we are in LA, it's 2025 and we have, Waymos.
It's crazy.
Have you ridden in one yet?
My kids tell me about, no, I
You've
haven't
done
done it
it.
yet. Have
Okay.
you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it a couple of times. It's really freaky.
Freaky.
But no, but yeah, give it 30 seconds and you're like, all right, whatever. It's like anything else.
You
It,
don't sit there the whole time watching what it's doing?
I mean, you'll sit there
Yeah.
for the first 30 seconds, a minute, and you'll be like, what is going on? I did it with a couple of friends. And then, but it is extraordinary, but they're everywhere here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's clearly the future. So, yeah, anyway, that was the show where I did, it was sort of the first one. And then from that, I did a show after that called Kane. Well, then and also Lost. Um,
Okay, so now Lost. Now that's a total game changer for you.
it changes everything for me.
But now, from what I understand, you were not originally
No.
a featured play. You were a guest
Oh,
star.
yeah. In fact, this is an interesting, I don't know if this helps actors starting out, but my wife always said, because she was still acting at the time, she said she loved the show. I loved it as well. I actually lost the thread because back then, I don't know if TiVo was around, but I stopped watching. So I was like, oh, so she kept going with it, kept watching. And she said, if either one of us gets an audition or lands a guest star on the show, the whole family's going to Hawaii. We're all going to Hawaii. So the entire show shot in Oahu. So I was like, all right, whatever. And so sure enough, I get an audition for Lost. And I remember it was the night before, and it was 13 pages of material. And I had to go, and this is when you went in person, I had to go in the next.
Okay, we have to talk about that too. How do you prepare for that?
Exactly. Okay, so I'll tell you back then what we would always do, and it was always faxed or whatever. Back then I don't think
Right.
it was you're right. It's a tricky thing. Do you go completely off book? And if so, are you so up? When you have it the night before, it's 13 pages, and a lot of it.
How do you do that in third? How do you do that?
Well, it's a number of
Is
hours. You gotta. It's a lot of. Yeah,
you can do that? Okay.
yeah, I think for me,
Mhm.
it's like I always start with like, okay, but how much time do I have? And then can I get off book? What's more important is obviously how I feel. What do I want? What do I want from the other person? So I write down, motivations. What do I want from the
Mhm.
other person in the scene? How do I feel about everything here ish? or have a sense of history, write some history backstory where you can, and specificity definitely helps in memorization for me, at least, making everything very specific, definitely then it just sort of comes
Such as,
like you just, so when you read any text, you just, you, whatever it is, if I'm telling you a story about, yesterday I went to the supermarket and I picked up, right before I went to, so I have to think, well, what did I get at the supermarket? Why did I go? Those,
right.
so if you have the logic behind what you're saying down, or you have a sense, an image in yourself of doing all those things, it just comes. I think I find it comes easier to me if I do all that.
Hmm.
Sometimes if I struggle with text, I will literally draw images of what I'm doing,
Wow.
visualize. And I remember I did that on the Dark Knight. I had a heavy speech, and I was like, let me draw this out. Sometimes that helps me, and everyone's different, but specificity definitely helps because, it's good. It helps you sort of, it makes everything just
Real. Makes sense. Totally.
real, sharper, and everything. So that's
Hmm.
it works for me. But I thought, Vicki, that night, I thought, there's no way I'm going to wreck my chance at Lost. I'm not going in. So, I was like, even though I worked on it all night, I was like, I can't. I'm going to wreck it. I'll do it. Hopefully, another one in the future, I'll go in. So I went to bed saying no, and
Wait, you weren't going to go to the audition?
no, I know. I was like, no, I can't, because I didn't have enough time to really do a good job. So then that morning, I woke up and I looked at it and I said, I'm not off book. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. So I went. And then I went into a room where there were, I don't know, 30, 40 guys there at the time. And none of them looked like me. I go, there are all these different types. I go, oh my God, this is like a blank canvas. Uh,
Wow.
yeah. And as
That doesn't happen often, does it?
not
No.
at all. No, it was sort of an open kind of call, that kind of thing. So I went in, I felt with, nothing to lose, and it's April Webster, tremendous casting director, incredible casting director. She's so incredible and so kind. And read for her and one of the producers who was there. But it was one of those, and I know you've been there, where it does click. You feel, it clicks in that moment. It doesn't always happen. God knows I've bombed many an audition in my past, but in that particular case, I felt, oh, that felt okay. I felt like I was present.
So you had your 13 pages down.
Yeah, I did, and yet
Wow.
I didn't have it all 100% down, but I had it enough. And if you hold the material here and you have it, if you're in that space where you kind of know it all, but you can hold it here as a bit of a safety net,
Hmm.
like you can always do the Brando where you kind of look down and search for the words, that kind of thing. And that's fine. You certainly can't see that on camera.
Right.
So there's things you can do like that. But yeah, I mean, I'd worked on it enough. And my wife taught me this. I don't know if this is helpful to you or other actors, is she says, work in work sessions. She goes, instead of doing like, you're going to work 3 hours straight and just go kind of like, just be foggy about it. She goes, put a set a timer on your iPhone, 40 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever it is, maybe less, 30, whatever you can stomach, and really work on it. Do all of the, whatever you processes, whether it's, objectives, whether it's, specificity, history, right,
Hmm.
whatever it is, running the lines, whatever it is, work on it, and then take a 15, 20-minute break.
Good idea.
And then go,
Always. Hmm.
always take that break, let your brain breathe, and then go back and do another work session, 40 minutes, whatever it is, 30, 40, 45, another 20, 15-minute break, and then do it again, a third one. And sometimes, depending on how much material you have, maybe it's 3 work sessions, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, or whatever it is, whatever it is that you need. But she said, do it in work sessions. Don't do it in this like nebulous block of time where you're
Right.
you're kind of despairing. Step away from it. And that has really helped me.
And also knowing that there's a break coming up,
Yes.
it lightens one's mind, I'm sure.
Completely.
Hmm.
So, I don't know if that's helpful to other people. It certainly helped
It's a
me
great idea.
when I was auditioning. So, so I did do that. I remember doing that night before, and that did help the
And
next.
so what was it? Was it originally a one-shot deal? Was it
Yeah.
a
So it was just a guest star. I'm not just a
Mhm.
guest star. It was a great guest
Yeah.
star, but
Hmm.
it was a backstory for the character of Juliet, beautifully played by Elizabeth Mitchell. And so yeah, so we all went to Hawaii, and thinking whatever. And it was a very meaty guest spot. So I was like, oh, this is fun. But it was just someone's history. I go, well, that's, it'll be a one and done. But, we got to go to Hawaii and it's lost and it's all those good things. And then I got a call 5 weeks later. They said, okay, they want you back. I go, how so? And her another flashback. She goes, no, in the present on the island. I go, what? And then that's when things started to change. Yeah. So yeah, completely unexpected. And that's the beautiful, yeah, as you know, the beautiful thing about this business. And sometimes the unnerving thing is you don't know what's coming around the corner.
Okay, so now you're on the hottest show on television. How does life, I mean, now your parents are like, good move, good choice,
Oh, I mean,
right?
they were already there. They were already
Sure.
well.
I mean, you did suddenly, Susan. You had all those. Yeah,
No,
of
but they,
course. But
yeah, and it's not a show that they watched. It's so funny. But no, my parents, they were already there. I think the more importantly, I think life changed in terms of the opportunities I was seeing. You know, I was starting to see just different kinds of material. I think I'd done just prior to Lost. I'd done a movie called Smoking Aces that hadn't come out yet. And then I ended up doing Lost. And so between those two things, opportunities were being opened up. Oh, I do have a story about that hopefully is helpful to actors on Smoking Aces.
Mhm.
I was recurring on a show called Strong Medicine. I was doing like nine episodes that season, and I got an audition to read for Joe Carnahan for this movie called Smoking Aces, and I read it and I go, oh my God, this is amazing, and it's a great role. And so I read for it, and I read with Joe, and he was amazing. I don't know if you know Joe Carnahan.
Mhm.
He's extraordinary. I've worked with him now a number of times. And I read with Joe, and he goes, "Great, yeah, great, yeah, yeah. If yeah, he's an amazing guy. He goes, yeah, if we just screw up your face a little bit, I could totally see it. And I go, okay, I walked away, and I didn't hear anything, but it stuck with me what he said. He goes, if we just screw up your face a little bit, what does that mean? He goes, oh, maybe I'm too clean cut for the role. So I was stewed on that, and I had my agents checked. He goes, yeah, no, that hasn't been cast yet. And I go, I'm going to do something. So I decided to hire a makeup artist on Strong Medicine and say, do you mind messing up my face?
Wow.
Let me treat you or pay you. She refused. She wouldn't let me pay her. But I gave her a bottle of champagne. I go, and then take pictures of me. And I want to send that to Joe. So I did that. She did a great job, messed me up, in the way the character would be messed up. And I said, I can't stop thinking, of Pasquale Acosta, I hope you're well. Sent the email. Next day, get a call. He wants to see you again. And, so, and then I read again. And then after that, eventually got the offer. But for me, it's a way to tell young actors starting out. As you know, there's a fine line. There's a dance in this business where you want to take initiative, not be too pushy. It's something you have to learn where
Is
that.
there anything, Nestor, you ever did that crossed that line where you
Oh my
got
God,
stopped?
I can only imagine. I have to think when was too much. I
I
mean,
mean, like, did you ever
I'm
go in there
sure.
with like an accent or a look that they were
Oh,
like, no, 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 no?
I'm sure thousands of times. People are very kind. They don't tell you to your face, how bad it was. But there's plenty of times when I know I bombed. I was like, okay, that was really bad. I just hope the feedback isn't as bad as I think it's going to be.
Did
So
you ever not get something that you really wanted?
so many times, so many times.
Yeah.
So in the first 3 years, I would come second or third in a lot of parts, particularly in films. So yeah, and that is for any young actor, that's the way. A lot
But
of it.
it's really not happening to you now because now you're getting the call because now they
Well,
just
that's
call you when
yeah.
they want you, right?
Right now it's different, but when I was starting out, for so many people, young people starting out, and I know your daughter. You mentioned she started out during the pandemic, which was a very hard time to start.
Hmm.
A lot of it is like casting people getting to know who you are, and then calling you eventually for as much as they can call you in for, and eventually you're going to be right for something, and the opportunity will land eventually. But so those first 3 years, or more, are
Hmm.
about getting close, and it's about getting close, and it's about just staying sharp, staying sane, and trusting in the process. And so, yeah, I would get close on a number of films. There's so many films I lost out on. But that happens to everybody. That's most everybody's
Right.
journey, but it is about, keeping some level of sanity, staying grounded, having some level of faith wherever you can draw that from.
And so have you known when things were, I mean, like Lost was an established hit
Right.
already. So you get that, once you get cast, did you know when they were making you a regular, okay, now I'm in, I'm gonna be,
Yeah. Yeah. Although year to year, you never knew if you're going to die or not.
okay, yeah, that's
I knew my character at some point he was immortal. So at
Mhm.
some point I was like, well, at some point we have to explain that. They have to explain that, or some level of it. I didn't know it was going to come in the way of this big episode in the last season. But you never really knew if you were going to live or not. Even in the last episode of every season, they would shoot multiple endings. They would put
Mhm.
different people in coffins. So
Wow.
even the actors weren't quite sure, although you knew by the amount of coverage some actors were getting who was going to die and who wasn't. So if you had extra coverage, you were likely not coming back. But but that was one of the thrills of the show, is that, you just didn't know what was going to happen.
And
Uh,
were you satisfied with how it ended?
I loved it. I loved it. I
Mhm.
know a lot of people, I know
Mhm.
it's a mixed bag. Some people actually in rewatching it are now, a lot of people at the time
We,
weren't.
we are. We're,
You are.
we're, 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 yeah, we haven't even gotten to you yet.
Okay. Oh, you got some time. You got a little time.
We got a
So,
little time.
so you have but you've watched it the entire.
I did not ever watch it. Snuffy
Oh,
did.
oh, we
And
did.
so we like, I don't know, 6 months ago, we said, we got to watch Lost. We should have to watch Lost.
Wow.
And so we go back to it, we start like now we're watching the morning show.
Right.
We're binging you and
Wow.
we'll start binging things, but then we'll go back and we'll go back and watch episodes of Lost. So we're not watching it
Yeah, consecutively.
straight through. Yeah, we're not
Yeah,
watching it
yeah.
consecutively.
Yeah, well, it's a commitment. I mean, it's 6 seasons. It's a lot. It is a lot. Um, but no, yeah, no, it absolutely completely changed my world. It ruined us as a family because we all moved there the last season. So leaving paradise was brutal. My wife Shannon was like, "Is there any way you can get on Hawaii 5 so we could stay?" I was like, "They already have two lost cast members. I don't want a third one." So
Is that true?
yeah,
Oh,
I did.
that's funny.
Believe me. Oh, believe me, I asked. I was like, I mean, it's Hawaii. It's Oahu. It's paradise,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
just the island, the people, everything about it. It's
Were your
extraordinary.
kids happy there?
Yeah, I mean, they were very young, but they were thrilled. They were very happy. So it was, I mean, they had friends here, so it was fine for them. But it was hard coming back. I mean, that was paradise.
And so when you got off Lost, and so you're on the hottest show, you have this incredible character. What do you roll into from there?
So then I worked on a show called Ringer with Sarah Michelle Gellar and my friend Johan Gruffith, who I'd done Century City with before. So we did that for a year,
Hmm.
and the writer's strike came in and kind of hurt that show. So then after that is when I got a call from Carlton Cuse, who I worked with on Lost, to do Bates Motel. And
Okay. And did you have any idea when you got that call that that was going to turn into this whole?
only when he did send me, he and Carrie Aaron had written the first 6 episodes. Carrie Aaron, creator of Bates Motel, and extraordinary. She's just a force of nature. She's extraordinary. The two of them are amazing. And they wrote these 6 episodes, and they sent me the first 6. And I knew then, I was like, I mean, it's so well written. And so I was like, no, and it's A&E, they're behind it.
Did they do a chemistry read with you and Vera?
No, what he said to me was like, listen, I want you to play, I'd love for you to play the Sheriff Alex Romero. He goes, we're thinking of pairing you up with Vera, for in the long term, as a long-term thing, but we want to see how you guys, if there's chemistry there. So because there's no promise, but if there's chemistry there, we'll write to that. And so sure enough, so I knew, at least I was like, okay, that's the seed. Let's see if there is chemistry. And so Vera can have chemistry with a chair, I mean, so as soon as I walked in, I was like, I think we're going to be fine. She's so, she's so open, so available emotionally. She's so good. So that part, as an actor, as a partner, to have a partner like that was, as a gift, as a dream. So yeah, no, that again, that's another show that completely changed my life. It was a little show that we were shooting almost like in seclusion in Hawaii and in Vancouver, rather, and I'd fly back and forth from here to there to see the
Now, is
family.
that challenging for Shannon when you're on a show and you have that kind of chemistry with an actress?
Oh, that part, no, No,
No,
Shannon's an actor, so she gets it. No,
she
no,
gets it.
no, no,
Okay.
no, oh my God, no, she's, and Vera, as I like to think, as super professional in terms of no, 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 and I think for Shannon, no, no, she gets it. She's fully trained as
Okay, so the other side of that, was it challenging for her that you were having all of this success that she had dreamt of for herself?
she it's interesting, she didn't see it that way. It was never like a
Good.
competition, or like a, she talks about that in the book.
Mhm.
It wasn't that. I think for her it was just this
Hole to fill.
gaping hole to fill. Is like,
Mhm.
how do I, it's, and feeling that way about someone else's career has nothing to do with filling that hole.
Right.
So for her, it wasn't that. I'll tell you what was, we were just talking about this morning, what was really hard in retrospect, and even as we're going through it, was, and this I know a lot of actors deal with, and musicians, is the time away from home.
Right.
That was you can't get those years back. And it was 6 months of the year I'd be in Vancouver, and I'd fly back whenever I could. While
How often was that?
So, what, that I'd fly back, I try to come home every weekend, but
Oh,
some,
wow.
yeah, sometimes I'd be there, 2 weeks, and then I'd come back. So, and then I started directing there, which keeps you there for a long time. So I would be there,
Right.
so those were, that was especially hard. That was
And
hard,
so how we went through the bicoastal thing with my kids. How
yeah,
was it for your kids?
brutal.
It's funny, there's a storyline on the morning show right now where the character Chris has to choose
Yes.
between
Yes.
going to her daughters,
Yes.
right?
Great
Um,
storyline. Yeah. Yeah.
so you had to make choices like that.
Brutal choices. Yeah. And this is all credit to Shannon. It is 100% what she had to do with emotionally, what she's dealing with her own issues, creatively, and then having to care for two young boys who were incredible. The kids were extraordinary, but to have to do that with your mom, there, your dad gone half the time, if not more than half the time. It's an extraordinary thing to ask of a family. And,
How many years was that going on?
5 years we did that. Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time.
It's a long time. And
Hmm.
yeah, I don't think I could have done another season of doing that stuff. And so thankfully that was the last time that we had to do that for considerable amount of time, especially with the kids still in school here. So, but I know a lot of other people aren't, especially musicians, when you're on the road,
Hmm.
there's not much of a choice there, so, but that was hard. That was really, really hard. And to Shannon's credit, she handled it like incredibly well. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what was going on then. There was no FaceTime then,
I
was
mean, yeah,
there?
it was FaceTime. There was,
There was
yeah, it
FaceTime.
was. We could FaceTime, but, and I remember we would do this. I'd be in my apartment in Vancouver, and we'd have dinner. I was like, all right, dinner. They're at the dinner table. I'm FaceTiming them. We're having a meal together, but we all know that it's just not the same. It's just not the
Well,
same.
but I think it helps a lot.
It helps. It buys you a day or two. The FaceTime, definitely better than back in the day when it was a phone call,
Right.
before cell phones too, where you had to wait for an answering machine. There's no question. Absolutely.
Yeah.
FaceTime will buy you some time, but
Mhm.
at a certain point, you need to physically be there.
Yeah,
We all know that.
no
Uh,
doubt.
yeah. So, but hey, listen, that was, it was a good problem to have in the sense that it was an extraordinary creative opportunity. But yeah, it came at a cost, personally, for sure.
All right, so let's get to hit some of the highlights before so The Dark Knight, we just watched it again last night. I hadn't seen it since it first came out. Forgot like how the cast. Oh my
That's I
God,
didn't think about
everybody
that.
was in
Yeah.
that movie.
Oh, it was extraordinary. That was, yeah. And then working with everyone was just, yeah, from Heath Ledger on to,
And so what was that like? I mean, was Heath as eccentric as I would think he might have been while he was playing that role?
yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I didn't get to know him much. I introduced myself to him. There was a scene where I make uh, Gordon the commissioner. I anoint him commissioner, and then you have
Mhm.
Heath. He's in behind a cage. And he claps. He improvised that clapping. That's I met him that day, and I remember saying, hey, I sort of talked, and he was lovely, really sweet, but I could feel he was like really into this thing. I was like, oh, I think he doesn't want to have any chats. I think he's really steeped into this character. And so yeah, so but lovely, lovely. And others who worked with him more said, no, he could not have been nicer.
Michael Caine, I read something he wrote yesterday. I read something he had written where he said he scared the shit out of him on that set, that he was so not him, but
Sure. The character, yeah.
he's looking at his face and the makeup and the whole thing. He said he was really scary.
Yeah, I mean, he was when you watch the film back. He's so, I mean, he is that character. He
Mhm.
really embodies that character, and he brings this humanity to it. And I know that there's that scene where he's in the jail cell. He's in like a white jail cell or something. And he's talking to, I think it's Gordon, and he's licking the inside of his mouth, like he's feeling the scars. And it's just such a subtle thing that I was like,
Mm.
oh, genius. So I think there's a lot of physicality that he improvised, so very free. You could see how free he was in that role. And he'd done a lot of homework. I think he was journaling quite a bit as that character. So, but yeah,
And your co-star Gary Oldman became a Sir yesterday.
is that right?
He got knighted
Oh,
yesterday.
well, there you go. I mean, as he should be, though. The guy is incredible. He's a legend.
Have you watched Slow Horses?
I've watched pieces of it. He's extraordinary. He's
Oh my God. There's never been a character like that that's
yeah,
been the star of a show that I can ever imagine. A drunken,
yeah,
slovenly, and
yeah.
he's just so brilliant.
I mean, it's Gary Oldman. It just doesn't get better. He's extraordinary. Yeah, I mean, and he was, I mean, such a grounded, just a real guy, just
Mm.
like the nicest guy, and just really hardworking and just open and
Well,
just,
that's good to hear.
oh, yeah. I mean, this is like a really down to earth guy who's all about the craft and, and he's respectful. He's a great guy. Great man. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get more current. The morning show. So how did Yanko come to you? And did you? I mean, it's an Apple show, so you don't know with those things. Are they going to go, right?
Yeah.
It's
Well, with that one, we knew we did know because
well, maybe Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston, you kind of
yes.
know.
Yeah, no, and also that show it had already been picked up for 2 years. So
Ah,
it was Apple's. It was them launching. They were using the show to launch the network.
right.
We knew there were 2 years. It was a 2 year pickup. So that was, and Steve Carell, I think, was attached for 2 years. So the three of them were already attached. So I was like, well, I mean, how do that's pretty extraordinary. And Carrie Aaron, my
Mhm.
friend who created Bates Motel with Carlton Cuse, she was creating the show. So she called me and said, listen, I'm doing the show. I'm thinking, is there something you want to be a part of? I go, are you kidding me? Of course I want to be a part of that. I go, what? I go, is there any role that you think you might want to play? I go, look, I've always been fascinated by weathermen or
Oh,
meteorologists.
you're kidding.
I thought, I said, really? He goes, yeah, I think there's a lot of comedy there. I think there's a lot of fun there because a lot of what they do is they improvise everything. So I think there could be a lot of fun there, and especially a guy who never gets his due, who completely feels underappreciated. I was It's so much fun So she crafted this character,
Wow.
yeah, and that's how that started. Yeah,
So I think I told you we went back and we started to watch season four. I'm like, no, we don't remember anything. So we said, we'll watch season three. No. So we ended up going
oh,
back to
kidding.
season one. We've
Oh
in
my
the
god.
last like week, we've watched you through the
Oh, God
years.
bless you. I can't believe you've done that. That's
Oh,
amazing.
absolutely. It's been fabulous. And it was really lovely. I mean, you had that wonderful storyline with Claire, you had
Yeah,
the romance and then you had that crazy storyline with your spirit animal where that was like a whole wacky thing where you had to apologize and do all of
right.
that.
Yeah,
So now we're in season four and Claire is back. And
right.
so does Claire, you can't tell me, but like we're wondering, like, does Claire
Well,
come back for Yanko?
okay, so there's not much I can say because I'll wreck it for you and anybody else, But I'm on next week. I'm not in every episode. I'm on next week. I have quite a bit next week, and then I have quite a lot in episode 7, where we'll see quite a bit in those 2 episodes in particular. We're gonna learn
Okay.
a few things about sort of Yanko and his
Okay.
his conflicts, his inner conflicts, and his interpersonal conflicts. So you'll get there will be a reckoning of sorts. for him.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It,
And you've already kind of like he kind of slipped from being like the weatherman to
I was
like
an
being
anchor.
an anchor.
I was
Like,
an
where did that happen? I mean, it just kind of happened,
Well, it
unless I
happened.
missed something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, that was so Carrie did the first 2 years and Charlotte Stout took over season three. And so she came up with the idea. I think he should move to the chair. Let's get him on the chair. And I go, okay, great. That's great. He sort of stepped into the chair. And she made that happen. Charlotte
And
did.
you were dancing. You
Yeah.
were opening a show with a dance.
Yes. Well, stay tuned for next week because there's sadly more dancing.
No, how fabulous. That's so fabulous. Okay, so now while you're doing this, you shoot Motherland, and you and Holland have quite a history because you also did an episode of Monk together, right? So you've done
So
three
yeah, yeah.
different.
I feel like I'm just following. I'm trying to follow Holland everywhere she goes. She's amazing. Yeah, we shot that. It was the year of the strike, So and that had been approved. That it was one of the independents that had been approved. So we shot that in Poughkeepsie, New York, in the fall of that year, and got to work with Holland again. And Miriam Silverman is terrific.
Terrific.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
guys are great together.
Thank you. And Emily Arancio as well is, it's her first job really. So really lovely cast and Evan Matthews, brilliant director. First feature, did a brilliant job.
Oh,
So, we shot this, this beautiful dystopian film. Really powerful. I don't know if it stayed with you, but man, it stayed with me. It's a really strong message. Yeah.
especially having well, not just, but I watched The Handmaid's Tale all the way through, and
Okay.
it has feeling. It
Yes.
has a feel of,
Elements of that.
yeah, elements. Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely powerful. And your character has a lovely transition.
Yeah, is a really nice emotional arc. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
beautifully written by Nicole Swinford. Yeah, it has a nice arc, and so yeah, I mean, I think yeah, that's a really compelling sort of a story about for those who don't know anything about it. It's the premise is it's a world in where babies are separated from the mothers at birth in order to spare the mother from the hardships of unburden them from the hardships of motherhood. And then the society raises the child all equally, all in the name of equality and opportunity, the same opportunity. And then obviously something happens there that completely upends this woman's world. And she ends up starting a revolution. That's sort of like, as much as we can say, but it's a really cool world, where everyone's following these crazy rules, these dystopian rules. And then something happens and everyone's, opinion starts to shift, and their emotions start getting involved. Everyone gets the feels, as it were.
The feels.
That's how the kids say it these days. Anyway, but yeah, no, but that was a lot. That was a great experience. It was really amazing. I really,
And now, while you're doing the morning show and while you're doing Motherland,
yeah.
you have another Netflix show. Now, we haven't
Oh,
watched
right.
that one yet.
No,
We
no,
have to
that's Pulse.
binge
Yeah.
the Pulse.
No, Pulse.
So,
Pulse was fun again. It was Carlton. He called me and he said, "Hey, I'm doing this show, Carlton Hughes. I'm doing a show for Netflix, a medical show. Set in Miami. Would love for you to be a part of it." I go, yeah, I'd love to read it. So I read it and I said, "This is great. What a great character." So I was able to do that right before I went back to the morning show. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah,
you are a hardworking man.
I was, hey, you know how it is, and especially when it's something that's compelling, and also working with people you've worked with before who you love as well as it's always a treat. But and when the material is as great as it is, so yeah, it was great.
And so, do you know when you're going back to the morning show? Has that been
The morning
determined?
show, not yet, no, but I am now. I'm directing now, so I'm off to direct, and then uh,
Okay, let's talk about that. Tell us. Okay, I know there's an OCD storyline. That's all I really
oh, that's
remember.
something else. That's
Oh,
something that's dear to my heart. That's something I've co-written with a great writer and actor, Carlos Jacob. It's a film that
that's the Mark Maxey one,
it's a
right?
Mark Maxey project that we're putting the cast together on that one. So that will be hopefully for the first quarter of next year. You know,
Okay, so before we move off that one, and so that one you co-wrote and you're going to direct,
we'll
and
direct
what
that.
can you tell us
Yeah,
in a nutshell?
sure. That is essentially is about intrusive thought OCD, which is everyone knows about regular. Most people know about OCD, about germophobia.
Hmm.
Intrusive thought OCD is it's much more abstract, and it has many different. It can go into many different areas. So that like there's scrupulosity OCD, where you feel like you might go to hell if you commit a sin. So you obsess about that. There's all kinds of there's existential OCD, where you wonder if you, might want to kill yourself. I don't know, so you obsess about that. Or harm OCD, another one, where you might hurt yourself or hurt someone else. So you're perseverating, you're obsessing about those things. It's a fear that you may want to do it. Not that you'll do it, but it's a fear that you may want to do it. It's a real distinction. And it's a subject matter that's really dear to my heart. I have a strong connection to it. Friends, and
Someone in your life.
someone in my life that has it. And so, and my writing partner, Carlos Jacot, also has that as well.
Uh-huh.
His life, has a strong connection to intrusive thought OCD. So we thought, well, why don't we put our heads together? And during the pandemic, that's what we did. So we wrote, we were just.
So explain to me again, if you can, Nestor, intrusive thought OCD as opposed to all the other ones you were
Sure.
explaining.
It's basically, it's these thoughts that are in your head. So it's less about like, oh my God, am I going to catch a germ? Something physical like that, or I'm scared of spiders, I'm petrified of spiders. I'm scared of this thought, so it's just this thought is racing in my head. That's like, and it's something, the problem with OCD, or the big thing about OCD, is an inability to deal with doubt.
Mm,
So whenever there's any level of uncertainty in anything, people
mm,
OCD in general, that's when their OCD can be triggered, because they're like, well, they need a definitive answer, and when there's no definitive answer on issues of faith, morality, on life, death, existential, all these things, you can really go, in a loop, and really wind yourself up. And the difference between people with, have a little bit of, say, everyone says, oh, I got a little bit of OCD.
mm.
Difference between those and people who truly suffer from intrusive thought OCD is that, most people can say, all right, I did enough of that. I thought about it. What's for lunch? They have that what's for lunch switch. Whereas people with OCD they will,
They can't loop out.
they can't loop out, and then they'll start using a compulsion to deal with that. So they'll do,
Such as,
such as whatever it is, anything magical. If I tap my knee 3 times and I do
mhm,
that, or if I think of this, then that won't happen. And if I turn the knobs this way, they'll endow some magical thinking to something, that has no logic to it,
right.
but use that. And sometimes it works, but then after a while it stops working. So that's sort of in a nutshell what OCD, intrusive thought OCD, is about. Again, an inability to deal with doubt. So we thought, how do we physicalize this? It's all in your head. So that was the challenge
Mm.
Carlos and I had, is like, how do we bring this to the page and bring this to the screen and do this in a way that will be entertaining? Because it's not just about bringing awareness to an issue, but making it obviously entertaining. And so we worked on it for years, and now we feel it's in a really good place. And so we're hoping to put it together for next, for the spring or early next year.
That's fantastic. I have a couple of people in my life that have issues like that. So I think a lot of people are going to relate to this. And it's really not something that's been much explored.
Not to the extent that I think we're doing it. I think,
Mhm.
we've seen it As Good as It Gets, Jack Nicholson character deal with it, it
Russell Crowe had that movie.
was A Beautiful Mind. Oh, no,
It's a Beautiful Mind, yeah.
Beautiful
Hmm.
Mind. Yeah. Obviously Monk dealt with it. I think
Hmm.
a lot of it was germophobia from what I remember.
Hmm.
But again, OCD, it's like
It's a
whack-a-mole.
lot of things, yeah.
Yeah, you do that. You feel you got the germophobia down, and it pops up here. It's you got to work on it, and the way you work on it, the best way to work on it so far nowadays is called ERP. ERP is emotional response prevention. No, it's exposure and response prevention. Here we go. So you expose yourself to the very fear you have, so instead of running away from it, you go to the fear. You find activities to make yourself confront the fear. And the response prevention part of it is you stop doing whatever you're doing before in terms of a compulsion. So you're like,
That
no,
has to be really challenging.
really hard. So you have to do these exercises to eventually be able to, you basically put your feet to the fire and saying, I'm going to confront my fear,
Hmm.
and you do it in baby steps, and you work your way up to, you have a hierarchy of fears, and you work your way up to your biggest.
Wow.
That's how people, they do it with ERP.
Hmm. Fascinating. Okay, so, and what are you going off to direct now?
So I'm thrilled because I'm going back to Law and Order, which I've directed now a number of times, and I love it. And that's where did my first guest spot 35 years ago, 30 something years ago,
Oh, that's
4 years ago.
lovely.
So it's very full circle for me. So I love going back there. It's always a treat to get to work with them again. And then after that, I do a film. Fortunately, I can't say what it is, but it's a film I'm really excited about. I'll be playing one of the leads in that one. I'm really excited about, and that'll be.
What
And
genre are we talking about?
this is a true story period drama. That's why I got this growth going here. So I've got it hasn't been announced yet. It's greenlit, but it hasn't been announced yet. But I'll be going off to Mexico to shoot that later on. So
Fantastic.
yeah, very, very lucky, very excited about that.
Well, Nestor, you are just the most accessible, lovely,
Oh,
warm, welcoming,
thank you.
open.
You are.
You're just lovely to chat with. You were over dinner, and you are as much so here, and you deserve all the wonderful things happening to you.
So kind. Thank you, Vicky. And as do you. You were extraordinary. I know we had a beautiful dinner with Mark, and I so treasured that with you and Snuffy. I hope we can do it again.
I hope so too. And I want Shannon's book. I'm gonna order it today. I'm gonna oh,
Yeah,
give it out. Oh,
sure.
my thing. Give us the title again so
Sure.
that I can write it down. Something lost, I know.
It's called All Is Not Lost
All is not lost.
by Shannon
Okay.
Carbonell. And yeah,
I love it. Well, the best of luck with everything you're
thank you so
doing.
much. Likewise, thank you. And let's please have another dinner. And I want you to meet Shannon. I want her to meet
I
you.
would love that. I would love that.
Maybe a
Thank
little
you
small
so
book.
much, Nestor.